This is part 2 of how I built my acoustic panels. If you haven't seen part 1, please watch that first to see how I built the frame. Then return to this video to see how I finished the build. Here are the tools and materials you'll need for this part of the project. You'll need a staple gun. I'm using my DeWalt compact stapler. You'll need staples. These are 3/8 inch 10mm arrow staples. Some fabric shears, but you can use regular scissors. I have my tape measure. And you'll need a serrated knife of some kind. You can use a long knife from your kitchen. My knife is specifically for cutting rock wool. You'll need furniture backing fabric or landscaping fabric. Really, either will work. Just go with the cheaper option. And the fabric I picked up here is from Joann's. It's 70% polyester and 30% rayon. I actually went through about 3 different kinds of fabric before I found this. The others were either not quite black enough or just had a slight sheen. I found this to be perfect. Lastly, you'll need some sound absorbent material. I'm using some rock wool insulation, and this material is sold with single bats at 2 feet by 4 feet, so a single piece should fit perfectly into the frame. Here I'm laying out my fabric for the acoustic panel. Make sure your surface is clean. I then cut out what I needed to cover the panel. My frame is 2 feet by 4 feet, but to wrap the entire panel, I need to account for the width of the sides, which is 3.5 inches, and an additional 2 inches to have something to staple and allow me to work with. Now I'm centering the fabric on my workbench so I can bring over my frame to lay on top, front side down. Again, the insulation is pretty secure in there, it's pretty tight, but I still want to be careful not to be too rough here. For this particular build, I'm using smaller bats just because that's what I have on hand, but 2 by 4 foot bats should be easy enough to find at your local home improvement store. And I had only 1 full bat of insulation left from my prior builds. Fortunately, I kept some scrap pieces which I used to fill the gaps. It looks a little bit rough, but it works exactly the same. Everything fits snug, so it'll never sag, and I'll never see the inside. I stapled the backing fabric at the center of one end to keep it in place, then went to the other side to stretch it out and make a cut to fit the frame. Now I staple it into place. For this step, you don't need a ton of staples, just enough to keep the backing fabric in place. I have quite a bit of excess material, so I'm cutting that off. I'm trying to eliminate any material hanging over the stapled surface. I want it to look as clean as possible, so I'm trying to minimize any creases or bunched up material underneath the outer fabric when it's stapled on. Now I'm preparing the outer fabric, again just cutting off the excess material. Starting in the center, I start stapling the fabric into the wood. I start one side and staple from the center to the edges. This keeps the fabric centered and minimizes the chance of creases. Make sure you're pulling the fabric tight as you staple so there are no creases. If you do see creases, keep stretching the fabric and stapling everything in tight. The crease will likely work itself out, and don't be shy with the staples. It took some time for me to get a clean looking fold for my corners, so don't distress if it takes you a second to get it. I used one finger to stuff the fabric behind the folded side that I'll staple down. If you have too much fabric or aren't pulling tight enough, you will see that bunched up fabric behind the fold. Just remember, tight, 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 everything pulled tight. Again, it may take you a second, but be patient. Now I have a tight, clean corner. Once everything had been stapled, I went back again and removed the excess material. You don't have to do this, it's on the back, it'll never be seen, but I am cleaning it up just a bit. Ladies and gentlemen, that's it. A completed acoustic panel. Looks clean, looks professional, it's sturdy. And when I factor in the cost per each of every component, not including the tools, this single panel costs just under $30. I said this in one of my earlier videos. I believe acoustic treatments are an absolute must. They will make a huge impact to the sound quality in your space. And considering the cost, time, and effort, it's worth it.